Lorenzo, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about for the last many, many years is product pages. And I've been thinking about if you look at you and I have seen, I don't know, 5,000 product pages, right? And if you look at product pages, I would categorize them into two design camps. One design camp is more like Amazon, where it's the product images on the left, and then you have the price point on the right with the call to action for reviews, with the description, with the reviews in the lower half, like that standard template. Nowadays, there are a lot of product pages that are more modern. They're kind of like the Apple product page where they have it's like a long page with lots of images, and then they have these content blocks across, and it's more of a branded experience. Now, I was thinking about where where does the problem arise? And so my thinking is that I know what the problem is. The problem is that when someone is designing a new product page, like let's say they're launching a website, or when they're redesigning the page, what do? They go to a graphic designer. They say, hey, we're thinking about redesigning a product page. So the graphic designer goes and looks at 50 examples of product pages of e-commerce websites and says, okay, based on those best practices, and I've seen this, by the way, 100 times with my clients, where they'll one day just come to me and say, hey, we have these comps that our designer has put together. What do you think about it from a conversion perspective? I'm like, dude, it's like the designer is purely looking at, and I'm not saying this is true for all designers. I'm just saying this is the normal template, is that they'll go to multiple websites and say, hey, this 3-column design is becoming very popular, for example. And the client will be like, oh, this is really cool. And there is also a lot of focus on the page load time and all of those things. So what's happening is that you are designing the page, and then you are going to the marketer and you're going to a copywriter like me and saying, okay, now we want you to make this page convert really well. Well, I now have these little container blocks that are available to me, like little blocks where I can add some content. And this is a real problem. And now, so this is the reason why product pages are a problem. Now, the next step is that how do we fix this? Now, the challenge for the copywriter is I could certainly go to a client and say, let's redesign the page and let's design it in a way where I can actually add more content for people that want more content. There are two problems with this. Number one is that the sunk cost fallacy. The client has already spent a ton of money redesigning their product page. Me coming in and saying, let me kind of design it differently is a turnoff for them. The other problem is that there are three problems. Problem number two is that design is always political. That means that if I'm working with a marketing manager for a brand, if I'm redesigning the product page, that approval process goes to the CEO. Now, the CEO has no idea what we're doing, and they'll be like, oh, this is whatever their context is. So that's the other problem. The third problem actually is a performance issue. So what happens with tools like, client-side tools like VWO and OptimizeD and all of these tools is that when you come to the page, that's when the experiment loads and that's when the shift happens. If you redesign a page, that's actually pretty heavy for the tool, and there will be a little flicker effect. And actually, I feel like that flicker effect can sometimes break the experience for the buyer, and actually can actually make the concept perform worse. So there are these three principal issues with that. And I have a very simple solution for it. This is what we use for all of our experiments. So as a copywriter, I know that the only thing that matters is the sales pitch. People buy products or don't buy products primarily persuaded by the sales pitch. Of course, reviews matter and all of these things matter as well, but I don't control reviews. So if you have a product that has negative reviews, all I can do is construct a better story to combat that. But the only thing I can control is the sales pitch. However, I also recognize the fact that the house has already been designed and I have to live within those constraints. So the way I solve that, Lorenzo, is that I place across on the page subtle call to actions. And they're subtle because I don't want to use a hammer to get everyone's attention. Because remember, these clients that we're working with, they already have, let's say, a 4% conversion rate. So I don't want to disturb those conversion rates, but I want to create these little subtle call to actions that are designed to get the attention of people that need more convincing. And so when they click on it, instead of trying to redesign the page, I just show a pop-up. And on mobile, it's a full screen pop-up. It's the world's simplest design, which is how publishing has always been: white background with dark color on the front with larger font sizes, because we know that it's easy. Cognitive ease is much higher with larger font sizes, even though sometimes brands say like, oh, the font, size needs to be small for our brand. Right now, it's not about your brand. Right now, it's about this person who's come to their website and said, I've seen your message, I'm interested, but I need more convincing. I have to close the sale for them. So the genius of this approach is that we are showing them this pop-up content. So everyone who needs more convincing, or most people who need more convincing, are discovering it. And what's happening is that on the back end, I can now test different flavors of the sales pitch.
Yeah.
And the point here is that once you found, so essentially what I've done is I've separated out the design of the product page with the sales pitch. Whereas normally we always think about them as being one integral unit. And the thing is that once you've figured out what sales pitch is resonating, now I can go back and I can redesign my product page. So that approach, I feel, is much cheaper than trying to redesign the page every time and running it as an A/B test. And it also gets you to the finish line much faster. Do you see it differently?
Yeah, no. So a couple of things about this. So first of all, we'll be putting a link in the notes with a couple of examples, maybe like of websites that do this live, because we got a lot of not a lot, but we got some feedback from people. It's like, oh, you guys talk about X, Y, and Z. Can you share some examples of somebody that is doing it? So we'll put those examples in the notes on YouTube.
Actually, Lorenzo, if you don't mind, I can actually share my screen right now and just show an example, at least for the YouTube channel. So
do that.
All right, just a second. All right, so one example is over here. So this is the website, and I'm now taking you to the product page, and this is their product page. And if you notice, the product page is fairly simple because the client wants to not overwhelm people when they come to the product page. And this is what I meant by containers. So if I was rewriting the sales pitch, I would have to work within this container. I have this container, I have this container, but I can't say remove this entire section and redesign it. I mean, those are limitations. Then it goes to the CEO for approval. So what we did was, at strategic locations, we added a call to action. One is over here, one is over here. But the point is that this has been specifically designed. This copy, for example, the science of skin health, has specifically been formulated for people that say, you know what, I've seen your product. I think this is really interesting. I might be interested, but I need more convincing. When you click on it, we're showing a pop-up, and it's a super long pop-up. And on mobile, it's a full screen pop-up. And this is what I mean by a simple white background. Front is black text, just designed for readability. And it's just designed for people that need more convincing. And I've now been able to separate out the design of the page with this. So I can test 10 different versions of this messaging to see which one resonates the best. Once I found the version that works the best, then by all means, I can redesign the product page, because now I have data, and Lorenzo loves this word. I have data that says that this is what people care about.
Yeah, and one thing that you also do, Rishi, all the time is actually tracking how many people are actually clicking on, the first call to action below the product image versus the one that you show below, right? To see which ones.
You notice that this one we've made invisible. Once you interact with the one on top, we make it invisible. But yes, we track for those clicks.
Because obviously nobody's gonna nobody's gonna be convinced by the pitch if they don't see it, right? So
that's right.
Tracking the visibility of this is absolutely critical.
That's right. So hopefully this gives you guys some insight into the process. We also have a demo page where you can actually play. You can obviously go to this website, teach.com. But if you write a comment, if you have a question, then I'm going to respond to you right away to give you more context. We want to make sure that you understand this idea, but the think about it from a financial perspective. What we are basically doing is, the thing is that I cannot remove the brand, because consumers expect branding. Design is important, but the thing is that I'm leveraging the design that the client already has, and I'm basically focusing on the sales pitch. And I think it's I've learned this the hard way. It took me lots of time to figure out. I used to always propose different ideas on designing the page, and clients would always say, no, too different, too controversial. CEO has not approved it, and I've come up with something else. And with this, I'm like, hey, your design is perfect. I'm not going to touch your design. I'm just going to focus on the sales pitch. I just think it's a clever way of getting to the finish line.
Totally, I
Awesome.
agree.
Thanks,
Cool.
guys.